check out these awesome Shadowversity hoodies that we now have available for you guys right now.
These things we've been working on behind the scenes for a couple of months, and we are very proud to finally be bringing these things to you. They are based on the brigandines that me and Shad both wear. Obviously, those brigandines are quite expensive, but everybody can pick up one of these for a nice, affordable price.
I call these stealth medieval, where it's not so out of the ordinary. People think that's weird, why are you wearing it? But also, to the keen observer, they will see that's a brigandine.
Finally, some merch that you can wear in public, and it's okay. We're very happy to bring these to you guys. Links in the description. Check them out. They support the channel, and yeah.
Really high quality, by the way. No expenses spared. These rivets are sewn on. We've got stealth logos. The material is nice. It's got some thickness to it. I love them. This is gonna be a standard jacket I'm wearing. Check them out. Grab one yourself while they're there. Limited time, so grab them while we have them available.
Shadowversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad.
And greetings, I am Tyrant.
And you might notice, as from the intro, look at what we're wearing. My one's a bit big. It turns out American sizes are bigger than Australian sizes.
I just want to point out, me and Shad have the exact same size. It comes down to muscle. He has no muscle on his body. Anyways, did you want to get into the video?
I have plenty of muscle on my body.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know,
The viewers can
you
decide.
say these things, Tyrant, but when the push comes to shove, how many times have I beaten you? So many things. So many.
All right, it's been 30 seconds. We need to get started with the video, so I will let that slide.
All right, so the concept of this video is a thing that's been on my mind for actually a couple of years now, and I have thought about it a lot, and recently I've put some designs down that I don't actually think work. But because of that, there are some interesting ideas that I want to discuss with you and also share it with our viewers, and maybe you guys can start putting some designs together to make it work, because the issue is that this idea is actually fiendishly difficult to try and pull off.
Yes.
And what we're discussing here is the concept of a collapsible and therefore concealable sword.
Collapsible, extendable, those sorts of things, that foldable.
Yes.
That sort of concept. I have been fascinated with this concept more in the realm of a lightsaber, personally. Like, you have the hilt and then it just extends into a blade. It's interesting because there are some things that exist in the world currently that are in this arena.
Yes. In fact, you have one right here that's...
Yes, so this is an example. There's a couple of examples. I'm going to put on a glove for this because it's actually super dangerous and dumb. So that's how we're starting the video. So what
I
you
don't
do,
want to get away from this.
So what you do is you click that up, you take that off like that.
This is like a freaking grenade, man.
Oh, Here it is. These things are so stupid. This is steel, man. Yeah. It's sharpened steel under tension. And this is an example of these collapsible rods things that took the internet by storm a couple of years ago, which are terrible.
Yeah,
like, they are trash.
They're not very strong.
Yeah. But there are things like this that already exist. Police batons are another example, which are effective. And then there's also, that I know of, like Chinese martial art training swords, which have a bit more of a sword cross-section, which are also extendable. They don't have an edge.
One of the most commonly used examples is just a fold-out knife.
Yep.
And there is huge convenience to having a tool weapon, right, that can be put in its own container in a smaller package and therefore easier to wear and carry.
Yes.
Because here's the interesting thing about swords, right? They don't actually weigh that much. Like a functional sword, look at this long sword, right?
A practical, realistic sword is not that heavy.
Yeah, this is 1.2 kilos. You wouldn't think it's like only that weight by looking at it, because the weight is thin, it's pressed down and then spread out. But 1.2 kilos, you can pick up a rock that fits in your hand that weighs that much. And so if you could concentrate the weight back into a small package, suddenly it becomes way more convenient to wear. Could we do that? Is there a design that could do it? I feel like we have the technology. We have the engineering and tooling capacity to make something like this. There just hasn't been a desire because there hasn't really been a need.
I would say there is, because I've actually given this a lot of thought. There is designs that I think would work. It's usually down to like costs. It would cost so much to manufacture something like this, and it just, who's going to spend that kind of money? Type thing.
And this is, I guess, that's the whole thing. This is an indulgent kind of interest for epic sword nerds. Now, having said that, though, swords can be self-defense tools, and I have a whole video on it actually, talking about what the best sword would be for self-defense. And in the video, I reference a guy. His name is Icy Mike. He does like a lot of self-defense videos. He looks at what are the best self-defense weapons, and he says like a sword actually isn't bad. So they got some pretty good qualities. And in my video, the best weapon for self-defense, I come to this one here. It is the United Cutlery Gladius. And one of the reasons why this works so well is because it's easy to wear.
Easy to wear. It's very choppy.
Yes.
And relatively speaking, it packs a lot of punch for its size.
It does. Now, the video that I go where it's best sword for self-defense is here on Shadowversity. It's a longer one. I do have a much more condensed, concise one on my second channel, the Shadlands. And so if you just want the quick, snappy cut version of why this works so well, you can check out that video on the Shadlands. It's only 10 minutes long, and that's where I'm putting more concise stuff for the videos. This would actually work pretty well. And as we mentioned, one of the reasons is it's easy to wear and also conceal, because it's just a bit weird seeing someone wear a sword these days.
Yes, maybe because
I wish we
mall
could.
ninjas and
I
have popularized it. Yes, sure. Yeah.
The thing is, though, also for every day, this is actually, even if I was allowed to wear it, it's very impractical. Getting in and out of a car.
That's true.
This is a pain. This would be a massive pain to get around with. If it was smaller, and that's why this one works really well, this is easy to wear, easy to get around. And so that's the kind of thesis as to why there is value in trying to make a sword that could do this.
I do think if it was realistic, if it existed right here, exactly how we have explained it, I do think it would catch on, and I do think people would use it.
I would want one.
Imagine just having a sword hilt that's maybe 8-9 inches or whatever it may be, something like that, that can extend out to a practical sword that can defend you.
Yeah, because one of the things that this doesn't cover is reach.
Yes.
Now, you don't necessarily need as much reach in the modern day because you're not fighting people with other weapons, but having said that, in combat, you always want to keep as much distance from the person trying to kill you as possible.
Yes.
And if you can poke them at a safer distance than they can reach you, there's utility in it.
I agree.
And so a longer sword would be better. With all that said, I want to show you some of the ideas that I've put together. I don't think necessarily work, but it might be a springboard to, I don't know, maybe we could try and explore making some of these. All right, so the first thing that I think people sometimes try and explore is the stuff that you demonstrated with this weird thing.
Yes.
A telescopic blade.
Now, I am more of a proponent of the telescopic design.
Really?
Not this.
Okay.
But if you look at something like a police baton, like the extendable batons, they usually have a taper to them because that allows for the force to be transferred into the blade. And you can have, usually when they're cylindrical, of course, they're stronger as well. So I gravitate more towards that sort of design. Not this, obviously, this terrible thing. But in general, if you look at something like an extendable baton or something, that's what I gravitate towards.
See, I think that wouldn't work. I lean away from the telescopic design.
I agree for a sword, but like I said, I explored this in more of a lightsaber
Yes.
realm, so that's why I lean towards more that. Yes.
Because one of the problems with trying to engineer this into a sword is that the blade needs structure to function and work well.
And that's why at the beginning of the video I brought up those martial art extendable training swords, because they actually have more of a diamond cross-section. They're still telescopic, though. Yeah,
and that's the problem. As soon as you want to add enough structure in a telescopic design, the thickness is going to be wholly impractical.
A design flaw that I've found with extendable anything is usually because they use the telescopic design, they use the force to extend and keep them extended.
Yeah.
So to actually push them back in like that, you have to
jam it down. But that could happen in a thrust, and
exactly. So there are pros and cons to it, but for a sword application, I don't think it's going to.
Yeah. This is again why it's actually a really intriguing engineering challenge, and I do still wonder if it's possible though.
We've mentioned a couple of different ones. We've mentioned the telescopic, we've mentioned the sort of diamond telescopic, and now we're talking about hinges. We've talked a little bit about pivots. There's one that I do want to mention very quickly, and that is, think of like the Assassin's Creed extendable one. There is obviously OTF knives out the front. There have been lately large ones made. People like they're big giant things like that where the blade just comes right out. The only issue I see with this sort of thing is usually the blade has to be the same length as the handle.
Yes.
But it is far more practical, I guess, than many of the methods we've discussed. So
Yeah, there's actually some really intriguing new designs coming out to achieve that. A couple that I've seen from good old Jörg Sprave from the Slingshot channel, where he is, a knife designer. And have you seen his double tanto?
Yep.
We'll bring up a clip, and I think that is just really clever and awesome.
Yeah.
Where it inserts itself into the handle. Yeah. But then also the handle of the other blade. And so when it pulls it out, you have this blade that's twice as long as the handle. And it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So those are another sort of design, I would say. Ones where the blade is usually the length of the handle and they can just extend out. I think it's not a bad place to start, personally.
So, okay, you might be, surprisingly, I didn't think you might be pushing me back to a telescopic design because they are simpler, less components. Well, my design here has a lot of folding parts.
Yes.
We aren't addressing the biggest problem with the telescopic design, and that's keeping it extended once it's extended. What locks it in so it won't fold back in when you thrust? You could cut with it, and the cutting would be interesting because just the centripetal motion of the cut would encourage the blade to be extended.
This is the thing.
Would the idea be just be a solely cutting weapon? No thrusting at all, because thrusting will always just make it come back in.
See, this is the complicated thing. I did want to bring examples for today's episode. I didn't know we were filming it exactly today, so I didn't bring any. Having experienced some telescopic designs, they are far more hard to actually put them back in than you would think.
So yeah, I have experience. I remember even buying those little lightsaber toys, and sometimes you have to really cram
Now
it
imagine
down.
that with steel. Like
But
it's actually
that's
surprising.
another problem, because sometimes you might not be able to fold it back in.
Yes, but if you gave me a telescopic blade and it was for self-defense purposes, and in a self-defense situation it comes out, I'm more than happy for me to fiddle about with it after the fact. Then
You know what you could do? What you could have is a cutout on the blade that's actually an actual cutout, right? That you could then insert a pin, and brace the handle here, and just that would give you the leverage to pull it back in if it gets stuck.
Just to explain for anybody who's unsure why a telescopic blade will get stuck most of the time is because they have draft angles, which mean that they taper into one another, which
and the
gives
friction
them that,
can lock it in really tight.
which is why they're telescopic in a way. But something like that, you could just
and you'd have that on each portion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not worried about putting it back together after the fact. I'm more worried about the deployment of it.
Yeah. That's interesting. That is interesting.
Because I do agree that your complicated design would probably work in practice. I reckon you could get that to work. It's just the manufacturing costs would be astronomical.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, I think because of how it's designed and having so many hinges and pivots, they will degrade relatively quickly and make it less viable. And then you have the issue of it's just complicated to actually use.
So I would be really intrigued as to how strong a telescopic blade could be. Because the thing that I guess is changing my mind on it is the fact that we already have blades that are 1 mil thick, and they have the structure to be functional. And so as soon if you just made most of the blade 1 mil thick on each end, there is something possible.
Well, keep in mind, it's not just about the thickness of the material. It is, I'm going to come back, triangles. It's all about triangles because you have that cross section.
This is why the structure of the video is a discussion, because we ultimately don't know, and I am interested to hear what you guys think. I am going to put together a telescopic design of what I think might work. Might be able to clip it in right now if I do it or not. Okay, it's actually the next day, and when I went to just kind of do some preliminary modeling things,
Shad couldn't help himself.
I might have got carried away.
Yes, okay.
And so yesterday I was showing you these things, and when I went away I modeled all that. There's construction phases and stuff, figuring out what the best designs, how many segments it needs and everything, and final design landed on this. And the reason why I was getting carried away is that the more I started trying to explore if it's possible, the more practical it was becoming and the more possible it was seeming, to the point where I designed the whole thing.
Okay.
All right, so this is the sword here. This is the sword. It all folds into the handle.
Yep.
It all fits into the handle. That's when it's extended, and these are the individual pieces.
Okay.
And so we can go in and have a look. But what I found intriguing as I started to explore this is that not much of the segments needed to be telescoped. You only need like tolerances or distances of 2 mil, even 1 mil, where that'll stop the blade pulling out. Here is a bit of a cross section to see where these tolerances are. And so it doesn't look like much, but this is the first blade, right? And where it extends is right here. But see, this is the line going straight, and so it actually extends by about 2 mil, or even 1. It doesn't look like much when you don't see that the line, but it actually ends up, if I throw a line here and then go in and measure something from there to there, that is 2 mil, a little over 2 mil, and that's easily enough pressure to where it won't fly out. And it's like, okay, if I work with that, and so again from here to here, that's the extension point that holds the next section in.
Yep.
And then this part is actually the wall of the second blade, and same with the third. And as a result, all these blades actually slide in. You would need to be a lot of precision machining to get this to work, because these are the segments. But what's really intriguing about these segments is this would actually, I think, be more functional than the previous design, because they're hollow, they would be lighter.
Yeah.
And so the first blade segment is 2 mil thick. So that's still in functional range, it's still got some meat to it. This one only has 1 mil thickness on either side, and so this only goes up to 4 mil. Then this one again goes up to 6 mil, and you can see where it slides in. And then this goes up to about 8 mil.
Right.
All right. And 8 mil at the base isn't bad. It actually ends up having a pretty reasonable, or you could say aggressive, but completely functional distal taper.
Right. Okay.
As a result. And so it's all working pretty well, I think. I think this would be very possible and a very functional blade.
Okay. Do you want me to rain on your parade yet?
Sure, fine, ruin it.
Okay. This is all too thin, and the tolerances, we've tested 1 mil blades before to show you that they are not practical. They're too thin. They're too thin.
The structure, because technically this here, I reckon that would hold together, because it would have a bit of an I-beam effect.
I don't think this one would. I think this is too thin. I think that if you're just hitting a human target, a fleshy target, sure, it's a sharp piece of steel. The moment this hits something solid, I think it's just gonna break apart.
I think it will hold. I think I have a good track record of predicting, material strengths on.
Who's the one who actually makes things, and who's the one who sits on the computer and just draws out the?
I test materials a lot. I've got a good track record of materials.
Go to your tapers.
Okay, so this is the thing, right? A lot of these swords, see how much it fits in.
Yeah.
And so that actually means that there's more thickness in the structure, because the blade extends so far down into the next parts. And so that would hold it together even more. And even on the handle, right, there's enough, it extends deep enough into the handle where your hand would be covering this section, that I think it would hold together quite nicely. Now, there was no taper on the bottom section to, when it flicks out of the handle, it could slide back in. And so what I have here is just like a pin that slides out, and you would slide it in, and that into the handle here, and that will lock the lowest part in place. So you could literally do the lightsaber, flick out, the whole thing would extend, then you'll just lock it in with your thumb, and you're good to go. Yeah. Look how far this whole section is holding that in place. That's enough bracing, I feel, where I think it would work. I think this would actually do it.
It's one of those things you just have to
You would have to test. You'd have to test to find out. But
I don't have much faith in 1 mil thick blades. Just in a general.
Well,
just
2
in a
mil.
general-
They're 2 mil thick, and we have swords that are in the 2 mil range, and they've worked.
But they're a solid piece. Like they're a continuous piece. But yeah, this is genuinely what generally, not genuinely, generally what I was talking about yesterday in terms of a telescopic blade using a cross section like this. Yeah.
And you could probably increase the widths on the walls for this, and it wouldn't go outside of reason.
Yeah.
But I think as a base, especially, the thing that works is the fact
How
that...
long is this?
So it is longsword range, actually. The blade is a little on the long side with the length of the handle, but the handle's so long so it can all fit in. But you are looking at about 1.3 meters. Average longsword is about 1.2, so it actually... But that's only because the handle is a bit, 10 centimeters longer than what it really should be for a longsword. But this is actually very much longsword range. The blade itself is... 90 centimeters. Okay. And so longsword blades usually can be like between 90 and 100 centimeters. So this is actually, like, I reckon this is the best design. And what's funny about this is I threw out the telescopic, I thought, it's just not going to work. I was wrong.
I only have one question.
Yeah.
Why have we got like a little Suba on this, Shad?
It's just so it stops your hand sliding down. That's not a guard. That's not a Suba. That's just a stopper.
Yeah, why don't we put a crossguard on it?
Because you want this sleek and easily concealable.
What
and
about the Lockwood? The Lockwood crossguard is very thin.
If you had flip-out crossguard, I would. That I'm interested in.
Okay.
And then imagine, all right, if you had a crossguard that folds down on the sides and it could all flick out, the blade and crossguard. You hold it at the base, and you just go, and it just. That would be wicked.
I agree.
That would be really cool. The thing is, though, we do not have the tools to make something like this. If we do have a viewer that happens to be a talented machinist...
This isn't machining.
What would you call this?
This is proper manufacture. Like
this is difficult. Like,
I've thought about this, and even I don't know how I would approach something like this, because it's just, there's so many different manufacturing processes you would need to make the one. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
If any one person had all the machines and like manufacturing down to make something like this, I would be genuinely impressed.
If we do have a viewer out there that is in that position, we would love to collaborate with you to build this. When we say you would almost need to build it for us. We would try and help out with materials and things like that. It would be kind of a passion project, really.
Feel free in the comments to explain to Shad how
I know how
unreasonable.
But hang on.
This is.
It's happened before. James, our carbon fiber expert, just reached out to us.
Carbon fiber is a million times easier than something like this.
Yeah, this would be really hard. The thing is, though, it would also be really cool.
Yes, Shad, I agree. But I think that's everything. That covers everything. Remember to check the hoodies in the description and the link down below.
But I think the takeaway is, I think this is a feasible design. I think it's now possible to make a collapsible, functional sword.
Yes. Make one, test it, fix up the
errors, and then refine it and everything. Yeah. Because I was skeptical that you could make it strong enough with the telescopic thing. I think that's wrong now. I think no. This because we've tested 2 mil thick swords and every blade here is around 2 mil. Yeah. I'm not saying it would be more as it would not be as durable as a real sword, but it would be strong enough to chop some targets up.
Yes, I wouldn't expect it to go against other swords. That's where the issue would be. But against soft targets, flesh targets, I think you're fine.
It would definitely function as a self-defense weapon that would easily be able to kill if you were ever pushed to that extent. In self-defense, of course.
YouTube,
yes, all self-defense, all the caveats. But guys, do check out the Shadowversity hoodies. We're really happy with them. They're amazing. And also, if you're interested, check out the build video for the carbon fiber sword, because we have something special coming up very soon.
Yes,
that you get to see something awesome about.
I know he's been waiting a year, literally, but it's coming next week.
Next week?
I'm gonna let you guys know. Next week,
the carbon fiber. We have the carbon fiber sword, guys. It's really cool.
All right, but that's all. Video here. Thanks for watching, guys.